Joining us right now on the set to discuss exactly that is our good friend Jeff Rose. Jeff, it's great to be with you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk about your book a little bit more here. I don't know if we can get the graphic up on the screen. We can show everybody what the title looked like. It's called Soldier of Finance here. And Jeff, tell us about your book. And I always love to ask this question to authors because someday I want to write a book too. What made you put pen to paper and put this information in this form?
You know, for me, ultimately passing away, not leaving me with inheritance, but actually leaving me with debt. I knew it's something that I didn't want to do to my children. So I just made that choice that I want to get out of debt. I want to help others, inspire others, so they don't follow down those same footsteps.
It's funny you mentioned that because we hear so much discussion in Washington about not leaving the next generation with a lot of debt. That's maybe a discussion for another day. But talk to us about debt today, because we hear about a lot of young Americans graduating from college with student loan debt. How can, because we need these folks to get into the workforce and pay their taxes, but they're also dealing with this debt. How can we get past this huge problem?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think, we always talk about bubbles and potential bubbles, and I feel like the student loan bubble is one of those that will be upcoming that we'll have to address. And I feel like just with, especially college students, maybe realizing that there are scholarships, there are ways of not being so dependent and not having to max out a 4-year, 6-year student loan to where now they graduate and they've got $30, $40, $50, $60, $100,000 of debt. Just finding alternatives, doing assistantships, doing internships, joining the military, something that helped me get through college debt-free.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that, because so often when we hear this discussion from the right and the left, we hear of these college students and young Americans spoken of as if they're kind of victims of the credit market. Your take is that they need to be more proactive and not allow themselves to be victimized.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel, especially like in the military, so when I was deployed, one of the things we always heard was don't become complacent. Don't become complacent to your surroundings. Make sure that you're always in tune with what's going on. And I feel like just Americans in general, especially young Americans, have just become complacent to their financial situation and their career. Like, oh, everybody gets debt. Everybody has student loans. So I'm just going to get student loans and I'm not going to keep track of it. Next thing I know, I've got a job and I've got to pay for a mortgage and I have kids. But how do I do that with this student loan debt that's just drowning me?
Well, let's talk about your service in the military and how that helped you overcome some of your debt.
It's helped me immensely. So prior to me joining the military, I was in a dead-end job. I had credit card debt. I really had no direction whatsoever. And I was always butting heads with my mom, and it just wasn't a good situation. And with the military, it just gave me the discipline, not to sound like I'm sure soldier says that, gave me that discipline that, I didn't have, but it's so true. It gave me the discipline I needed just to go back to school, get focused, and to also realize that, debt is the enemy. And to avoid at all costs. Now I say I still stumbled along the way. I mean, there were some credit cards I didn't need, but thankfully, meeting my now wife, she actually became my financial drill sergeant, we'll say.
As wives are known to do, and good for them for doing so.
Exactly. So she helped me, and together we've been on like a debt-free plan for since we've been together.
Well, that's inspirational, and debt can often be the cause of a lot of marital issues, as well as anybody who's experienced debt can certainly know about that. What branch of the military did you serve in?
So I was in the Army National Guard, and then in 2005 we were deployed. So initially I joined the National Guard because I thought I'm going to get my schooling paid for, avoid the student loans, and this was pre-9/11. And then after 9/11, I fulfilled my 6-year obligation, decided to re-enlist for another 3 years just because I loved it. I just loved the guys, just having that weekend away of getting out of the office, out of the suit, and just getting dirty. And we were then deployed for a 17-month deployment to Iraq.
Well, we thank you for your service, and I'm glad everything worked out for you. And certainly there are definitely good reasons why people join the military and things that they benefit. Because so often we hear about the sad stories of folks unable to find work, but I'm glad you can share a positive story because they are out there as well. In terms of finding financial success, your book talks about some of the elemental aspects of that. Give us a few of them.
To me, one, as I mentioned, like not being complacent. I think so many people they're investing their 401ks, and maybe they have some type of investment account, but they really don't know where that money's going. Not being complacent to what you're actually invested into. I talk to so many clients that have a 401k, they're putting in 5%, 10% into, they don't even know. Like, tell me, what investment strategy are you doing in your retirement plan? Because for those that are just investing in 401k, eventually that's going to become the largest asset that they're going to have. So wouldn't you want to know where your money's going to? Oftentimes the employer directs, automatically where those investments going. Like, does your employer know what your financial goals and dreams are? Do they really care? So make sure you know what's going on. Once again,
so you mean we actually have to open up those thick packets we get in the mail and read those prospectuses we get from our funds?
Maybe not so much prospectuses, because those put me to sleep as well. But
okay. Or tune into your book.
Tune into my book, but I think I don't know if this is an official statistic, but I would say that most people spend more time planning their family vacation than they do reviewing their. Put me to sleep as well, but
okay. Or tune into your book.
Tune into my book, but I think I don't know if this is an official statistic, but I would say that most people spend more time planning their family vacation than they do reviewing their investment situation.
All right. Well, vacations are important, but not as important as paying for them in the first place.
Exactly.
Talk about this money uprising movement.
So the money uprising movement was something I just started on my blog just actually last year, and it was basically giving people the inspiration they needed to say, listen, I'm going to take charge of my own financial future. That's kind of like the talk of my book. Only you can make the difference in your own life. With our generation, we're not going to have Social Security, you're not going to have pensions. Pensions, especially Social Security, if it is there, it's going to be some form of reduced benefit. I don't think it's going to have the full benefit that we're seeing now. And if it is there, that's great. That's icing on the cake. But if we're not dependent on that, then only we can do that. And with the money uprising movement, it's making people take charge of their own financial future, start investing in their 401k, but know what they're investing to. Go open a Roth IRA, expand their career, go back to school, get advanced certifications so they can get raises, and just be in charge of their own financial destiny.
Don't be a passenger, drive the financial bus, so to speak. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the current situations out there, some of the indicators that we look at when we're trying to gauge whether or not it's safe to invest our money right now, where that money should go. I was talking to a good friend of mine who does financial risk management last night, and he was saying, look, we got some good examples, some good things to point to, some optimistic things. Consumer confidence is up. Spending is up in the retail sector a little bit here. But at the same time, he said, incomes are not keeping up where they should be at this point, and so we could potentially be in for a lot of trouble here.
I agree. Like the income, it's funny, we look at the numbers because, here we are, 2009, we're looking at Dow Jones 6,500, and now we're surpassed 17,000. And it's like, what is going on? What has been these driving factors? Corporate earnings have been good. Things have been good for the most part, but there's still some, like you mentioned, income being one of those numbers. GDP, like unemployment, still being a cause of concern. So I still think there are some issues. I feel that there will be a correction of some kind. My fear is that when we have this correction, which we should, I mean, we've been a bull market now. I think we had the first 1% drop in 63 days, as of yesterday. So it's a matter of time. It's going to happen. Just be ready.
Well, and I've also heard from some economists who say, now, when that does happen, the correction, because it always does come eventually, right? There might be another recession. We're already in, I think, 1 month, or had 2 months of negative GDP growth. We could have another recession, but that might not be a bad thing because we never got that real significant bounce after the Great Recession. If we do see another recession in the next month or the next 2 months, is that something that people should not freak out about?
Absolutely. I think, once again, when it comes to the market, I think it all determines, what is your financial goals? What are you trying to achieve? If any correction or pullback shouldn't change what's going on in your financial life. Stay focused, keep doing your saving, reviewing your portfolio. I wouldn't be as concerned of having correction. I tell most of my clients, like, listen, I go, it's been, if we were compare the stock market to the weather over the past 18 months, it's been 75 degrees and sunny almost like every single day.
Right.
We're due for a thunderstorm. We're due for something, a little speed bump. So just prepared. Get your umbrella. It will pass, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, and I know some investors took out some money about this time last year when we started talking about the potential of another bubble here, and they're saying, well, do I want to put the money back in and get burned on both sides of this? But as you look ahead, and as a lot of younger folks look ahead, and you talk to your parents who are already retired about this, you say, make sure you don't lose sight of the long-term goals here, safety in the long term.
It is, and I know it sounds like a broken record, and a lot of financial advisors say that, but it's so true because so often we react on emotion. Selling. I talked to a client not too long ago that in 2008 he actually timed it, where he actually got out before we had the big dip. In the fall of 2008. Great,
yeah,
good for him. But you know where he's sitting now? Still in cash. Everything is still in cash because yes, he timed it well then, but he can never get back in. And once again, he lost that long-term vision.
A wise man once told me it's not the timing of the market, it's the time in the market. And also, that same guy told me that free financial advice is worth the price you pay. So make sure you buy Jeff's book. It's called Soldier of Finance, Take Charge of Your Money and Invest in Your Future. And Jeff, you mentioned your blog here as well. I want you to let people know where they can go to find out more information and learn more about you.
Sure. My main blog is goodfinancialsense, CENTS.com. That's actually my main hub. That's where I produce content and also a podcast as well.
All right. Well, as you mentioned before we actually started this interview, you talked about the internet being a small place, and you are in town today, and it's always great to talk to somebody face to face. But when you go back to your hometown there in Illinois, we hope you can keep in touch and continue this conversation, because I felt like we gave some great advice to folks at home today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, Jeff Rose here with us on America's Forum, giving us advice. And the long view, we don't talk about that enough. There's a lot of talk about the bubble here, a lot of concern, even though some financial indicators look good. But as Jeff said, consider the long view in the financial markets. John Bachman, more ahead here on America's Forum. Francesca Page will be joining us very shortly for more news.